Hey, how's it going, guys? Thank you for tuning in to VR Revelations. It is December 19th, the year of our Lord 2022, and we have, of course, more developments right now in Ukraine. So it looks like Russia has launched another attack here. We saw recently over the weekend, or heading into the weekend, that Russia did launch a wave of missiles at Ukraine, all over Ukraine. They actually did, destroy some. It looks like power infrastructure there, and a lot of people are without electricity still, and basic necessities like water and even shelter. And so as we head into the winter, this is becoming very problematic for the Ukrainian people, unfortunately. And Kyiv has, or rather, Ukraine has accused Russia of weaponizing winter, which I do believe to be the case. Of course, we are talking about war here. So yeah, it looks like in the midst of this most recent attack right here, as I'm about to read from the BBC News, President Vladimir Putin actually traveled to Belarus to talk with President Lukashenko there. And of course, this is a pretty big deal because it looks like Putin actually hadn't gone there since like 2019. So, I'm sure that if it's been that long since he's traveled to Belarus, he's not just going to go there to say hi. Of course, he could have had the Belarusian president come over to Russia, but he chose to go there. And at the beginning of the war, which started in February, Russia actually launched some small scale attacks at the capital of Ukraine, which is Kyiv. Of course, we had all these weird videos of like small units getting, trying to head towards the capital, and they actually ended up getting defeated by the Ukrainian forces. It seemed like it was a very uncoordinated, attack on the capital. It was like small scale. It was really odd. It looked really disorganized, and the Western media touted this as a major defensive victory for Ukraine. But at that time, Belarus allowed Russian troops to attack from their country, since Belarus does border Ukraine and Russia, as we can see here from this live UA map, which is keeping gives you reports pretty much by the minute of what's going on in Ukraine right now. So you can see these are all the reported bombings that are taking place along the eastern side of Ukraine, where Russia, of course, has annexed a lot of the territory over here. And we can see up here is actually Belarus. So all of this is Belarus. This is Ukraine. So you can see the border here between Belarus and Ukraine, and then up here you see the Belarusian border with Russia. So of course Russian troops can easily enter into Belarus near here, and use this land here to attack the capital Kyiv, which is around here. And they did at the beginning of the war. But it seems like after that, all of their major focus shifted out here to the eastern part of Ukraine. However, Ukraine is saying that Russia is planning on launching a large-scale military incursion into Ukraine, headed for the capital, apparently. And they are worried that, Belarus, or with this trip from Vladimir Putin to Belarus, he's trying to get the Belarusian army to join, and therefore open up a second front, which would be, in this northwestern border of Ukraine, right up here, I'm assuming. And so you can imagine the Belarusian army being so close here to, the command centers in the capital, attacking here, having the Russians pushing from the eastern side, or possibly the northern side up here. That would be a very that would be a very big move. However, the Russia and Belarus are saying that they're not trying to, that Belarus isn't going to join the battle, and they don't need to necessarily join the battle as long as they open up their borders to the Russians and allow the Russians to move their weapons and soldiers. They can still open up a second front against Ukraine because, again, I was thinking if Belarus does join, you have Poland over here. Of course, Poland has been asking to, you know, get involved pretty much, and so if Belarus gets involved, it's like the fire is spreading further, right? It's getting closer, and like it might not necessarily be at your house, but you see it right at your doorstep. So, you're gonna beef up your defenses. And again, this is just an escalation of war, right? It's like a fire. It keeps expanding, and if you live far away from it, you might not be that worried. But as it gets closer, then you start beefing up your defenses. You start talking strategy. At some point, you might actually want to take action. So I think if Belarus joins, that would be very escalatory, or it would increase the escalation and the probability for a larger scale, and of course for NATO to get involved and the U.S. more hands on than they already are. But if Belarus keeps their army back, sort of as a defensive measure, right, along these borders, or just protects the country, they can allow the Russians to create that second front on their own. And again, those first military operations at the beginning of the war, which aimed at the capital of Ukraine, again, were very disorganized. They were very small compared to what has been going on now with these missile attacks and these drone attacks. So, if it does open up, like Ukraine is saying, it could be very disastrous here. But let's get back to the strikes that just took place overnight. Like I said, it is currently Monday here, December 19th. So let's go ahead and take a look at this article from the BBC. Of course, you have other news sources reporting on this. You can go take a look at those yourself if you like. Let's go ahead and take a brief look here. So it says Ukraine's capital Kyiv has been rocked by explosions as Russia launched a rare overnight attack on the city. No one was killed and most of the missiles were shot down, Ukrainian officials said, but some did hit critical infrastructure, causing a blackout across the region. Now remember, it's cold over there right now. The attack occurred before Russia's President Vladimir Putin arrived in Belarus to meet Alexander Lukashenko. Ukraine has warned that Russia may be preparing a new attack from Belarus. This latest barrage of missile attacks from Russia is the third in 5 days. However, nighttime raids on the capital Kyiv are unusual. 23 Iranian missiles were launched, of which 18 were shot down. Of course, it's been reported that Russia had to deal with Iran and Iran has been providing these kamikaze drones, which pretty much just run straight into their target and explode. They've been supplying Russia with these drones, and it looks like Russia has been using them, according to reports. The head of Kyiv's military administration, Zurhaya Popko, said, "Pictures online show firefighters at a large blaze at a power plant. Only 2 people were injured, authorities reported, a very low number considering many people would have been asleep at the time of the strikes on civilian areas." Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko wrote on Telegram that critical infrastructure facilities were damaged and that engineers were working to restore power. Temperatures in Kyiv regularly drop below freezing and are set to fall further in January. That's exactly when Ukraine is saying that they're suspicious and that they believe that Russia is going to launch an attack headed for the capital at the beginning of the year. So I would assume they would try to do it when it's coldest, of course, when the ground is frozen and all of that. Last Friday, Russia launched a barrage of missiles in one of the largest airstrikes on the capital since the start of the war. Kyiv has accused Moscow of using winter as a weapon, which, of course, uh, they're definitely going to do. Russia has always done that. Um, at the weekend, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Russia could be planning another major ground offensive early next year, using Belarus as a launching pad for the attack. However, several experts have said they have seen no evidence so far of preparations for a push and question whether Moscow would be able to do it over the winter. Now, um, these are Western experts, but if you take a look at the history of Russia, Napoleon, when he invaded Russia, had to abandon the mission because of the Russian winter. And when the Nazis during World War II attacked Russia, they actually reached Moscow, but because of the weather conditions in the winter, eventually they were defeated. So the Russians definitely know how to weaponize the winter. They are the people of the north. They literally, if there's a people in this in this planet that knows how to use the cold or survive in it or use it to their advantage, it would be them. And I believe they will do that. I believe that's why they are increasing their attacks right now and destroying all of that infrastructure, the heating, the water to the Ukrainian people, in order to put pressure on the people, to put pressure on the government and the international community to stop this war. And that's always a strategy in any war, in any conflict, right? You try to demoralize the people, demoralize the government, the soldiers, and make them seek a peace agreement. And so I think that's the strategy here. I do believe Ukraine when they say that a major offensive could be launched for the capital. Belarus joining, I don't see them joining militarily, but again, what do you consider joining? At what point is joining? If they are going to let Russia cross through Belarus with a major army and possibly open up another offensive to head for the capital there in a pincher movement, right? Try to encircle them essentially. Again, that would be a huge movement there by Russia, but we are talking about a war here. They are launching these missiles. They are destroying things. There's pictures and videos out there. So this is serious stuff. Again, the U.S. is planning on sending these Patriot systems, missile defense systems, to Ukraine, which is only going to escalate this. So I think by next year, the intensity of the conflict is just going to increase exponentially. Do I think we'll have World War III? And when I say World War III, I actually mean like a nuclear exchange, like end of the world. I don't think that will happen yet. Again, the reason for that is because I do believe we are living in the end times. And eventually we will have a World War III according to biblical prophecy. But I think that there has to be a couple of more developments, certain end time prophecies that have to be fulfilled in order for all of that to take place. And of course, I will be talking about that more on the channel as I cover more of this news. I just don't want to get too sidetracked and go straight into biblical prophecies. Also, I did want to mention these videos that I did watch over the weekend here of U.S. Colonel R. Black talking about the situation right now, and he pretty much gave a pessimistic outlook right now for Ukraine. So let's actually take a quick read at this. It says, U.S. Colonel R. Black, battle lost for Ukrainians. Their losses at Bakhmut are massive, and they have seen nothing yet. So there is a video. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at the video here. Give myself a break from yapping so much.
And I would just say to Ukrainians, watch out, because if you think things have been bad so far, you're going to see something that is way beyond anything you conceived of before.
And of course, he's talking pretty much about the situation right now, and as we head into the New Year here. Let's take a look at this one here.
Now, the ongoing battle for Bakhmut in Ukraine has gradually become a disaster for the Ukrainian army. As Russia has successfully embarked on quadrupling its armed forces by early next year, Ukraine's own army is withering. Their troops are being thrown by the thousands into a cauldron of death in Bakhmut, and they do not seem to have any solution to the problem. Russia is winning in Bakhmut, Ukraine is losing in Bakhmut, and this proves or indicates that it is becoming a major strategic battle within the war.
All right, there you go. Let's go ahead and take a look at this third video here.
I fought in Vietnam, which was our last really bloody war that the United States fought. We had 58,000 people who were killed over a 10-year period. It was a 10-year war. It works out to where we had 485 people killed each month on average. That's the United States in Vietnam, 485. At Bakhmut, where there's an enormous battle being waged between Ukraine and Russia right now, right at this very moment as we speak, in Bakhmut, Ukraine is losing between 500 and 700 soldiers in a day. Okay, so they are losing in one day what the United States lost in a month in Vietnam. Now, so right away you've got 30 times as many dying, and then you have to realize that Ukraine has a much smaller population than the United States had back in those days. The U.S. had about 200 million during the Vietnam War, and Ukraine has about 37 million, and that's a high estimate because there have been about 7 million who have fled the country to avoid the war. So they have a very depleted population and enormous, just astounding numbers of Ukrainians have been thrown into the front lines, ground to hamburger meat by Russian artillery. It is true.
All right, well, there you go, guys. That's Colonel Richard Black there giving his analysis of the situation. And, this is pretty much what a lot of other, people are reporting on here. Of course, the Western side is never going to admit to any defeats or, things that are going to make them look bad, just as, Russia is going to do the same. This is the state of, the propaganda when there is a war going on. But you have to look at all the information, then extrapolate from there what is based on, the actual images, the actual situation that we're getting from these sources. And, you just have to focus on what's true from both sides, where they do agree, and then you can kind of create the picture of what's going on. But again, I've said from the beginning that, when a superpower is involved in a war, they're not going to lose unless, of course, there's like a coup in the government and then they make an agreement with the other side. But there's not going to be any coup on Putin like what's Drudge is reporting. They're pretty much like trying to manifest a coup by putting out false reports of all of this, and it's just not going to happen. This is prophetic in nature. Russia has to face the U.S. They are going to be mortal enemies till the end of the world, and so these things only have the potential to escalate, which will eventually culminate in a all-out nuclear war, total destruction, according to biblical prophecy. But there you go, guys. Drone attacks here as Putin is in Belarus, or was in Belarus, talking to Lukashenko there. It looks like Russia might be launching, an offensive attack on the capital of Ukraine, according to Kyiv themselves. And it looks like they could potentially be doing it the way they did it at the start of the war, with through the Belarusian border. And so I think this time the outcome will be a lot different. I think that Russia is in a better position right now to launch another attack in the capital, as Ukraine is reporting, since they do have that eastern area under control right now, since they are launching these drone attacks and these missiles into Ukraine and the capital. They can now make another more organized push like they've been doing here towards the capital, as well as launch these drone attacks and missile strikes. And if Belarus was to join, I definitely think they can take over, that northern western side, or possibly controlled area around the Belarusian border, and so sort of encroach around Kyiv. Now, again, it's very hard to take out a city. I think that would be, months of fighting, unless they use a massive weapon, right, like a small tactical nuclear bomb, which could take out pretty much the capital and like every building and everything in there. And they could give themselves that excuse if it comes down to it, if the United States keeps on sending these better defense systems like the Patriot system that they are planning on sending to Ukraine there. So definitely very interesting. We're interesting developments here. We're definitely going to have to keep an eye out here as we head into the new year, because that's when big things could take place. Again, we're sitting here in relative peace, but these people are in the middle of war right now, and the demoralizing factor really plays a role right now as we head into the holidays and everything like that. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye out. Make sure you give this video a like, and make sure you subscribe for future content. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments. And remember, the truth is stranger than fiction. Have a wonderful day, and God bless you.